This week's weekly update is fully packed with information and news around Christmas, what happened in 2024 when we have a look at the wine industry, the drinks industry, and the alcohol-free category. And we will start with a listener's question from Alex that had some issues with finding the right alcohol-free product. My personal week was dominated by the usage of new AI tools. I will do an extra episode on that, but I discovered that it is super easy to replace a consultant for whatever topic you're working at a very high quality, especially when it comes to working on concepts for 2025. So if you are looking for a way to structure your personal year 2025, dealing with some projects you're working on or even problems you're currently having, AI might definitely be a way to deal with them. So have fun with this episode and very soon with the extra episode on the current possibilities with AI. Enjoy. Welcome to the Pinot and Pixel podcast episode number 218, and I'd like to start this episode with a listener's question from Alex. Alex told me that his mom loves to drink wine, especially when it comes to Christmas, and they will see each other, the whole family, around Christmas for a couple of days, as most of us might do, but he doesn't want to drink alcohol all the time he's around his family. So he asked me what might be a good product to go to when it comes to alcohol-free alternatives. And he was talking about wine, and I told him what I also told you already, that there are some really exciting drinks where you can replace your daily choice of wine with an alcohol-free alternative. I'm not only talking about high-quality premium alcohol-free wines and sparkling wines, I'm also talking about teas and kombucha. So the recommendation I gave him, depending on what budget he was looking for, his budget's set around 10 to 20 euro a bottle. There are many products available, and I recommended him a sparkling tea that is made by a winery from Austria, and 2 different alcohol-free sparkling wines, because in my opinion, especially when it comes to the replacement of wine, the best way to do so at the moment, when we consider the technical development in that category, sparkling wines and white wines are definitely worth a try. And not only the German market is quite saturated with products like this, I'm also talking about brands such as Naughty in England or Moderato in France or Senso in Germany. With all these brands, you can definitely find a high quality alternative when it comes to alcohol-free sparkling or white wine. And talking about rosés and red wines, it's still a complex space, and there are some good products available as well, but it's definitely tougher if you're looking for a replacement for your bold red wines or your very fruit-forward rosé wines. If you need more recommendations like this, let me know at podcast@pinotpixel.com or text me over one of the social media platforms. And right now, let's dive into the news of the week, and I would like to start with the wrap-up of 2024, and I did an episode on this. In episode 217, we talked about what happened in 2024, what was hot and what was not. And one fact we were talking about was the decline red wine is still seeing, and that I think this will be an ongoing trend. And what we were reading, what we were able to read this week, was that the global wine production hit a historic low in 2024. So the global wine is set to hit a 60-year low as climate change, economic pressures disrupt vineyards worldwide. This was the intro of the article in the drinks business. They were talking about 230 million hectoliters, a 2% decline compared to 2023, and a 13% below the 10-year average. And this will definitely mark the smallest output of the wine industry since 1961. And looking at the most important drivers of this development, Europe usually accounts for over 60% of the global wine production, also sees significant decline. The total EU production is estimated at 130 million hectoliters, down 3% from 2023 and 11% compared to the 5-year average. And the same is recognizable in the Southern Hemisphere. They also struggled, 46 million hectoliters, down 2% and 12 below the 5-year average. Climate change was a big issue. We talked about many things that happened in 2024 that were definitely responsible for the decline in wine production. And especially when we have a look at Europe, the European wine consumption, not only the production, the consumption hit a 70-year low, according to data from the OIV. And that was a really interesting graph in that article. What we can see is the wine consumption between 1924 and 2023, so the last 100 years, and after the top consumption in 1982, which was an amazing vintage. It was declining until the late 90s. Then it saw a rise until 2017, and since then it has been declining steadily. And looking at Europe, Europe had its peak in 1975, exceeding 20 billion liters each year, and then rapidly declined by 15 billion liters by 1999. And this trend is attributed to the aging of loyal wine enthusiasts amid changing alcoholic beverage preferences among young generations. In particular, Gen Z, as we know, seeks low alcohol and non-alcoholic options, seeing wine as kind of an old-fashioned drink, a very bold drink full of alcohol, and wine struggles in addressing interest to Gen Z. And this is also something we talked about in the last episode. When we look at red wine, if you are not interested in red wine anymore because you think that it's fuller-bodied, it's very bold, it's high in alcohol, red wine producers should offer a lighter alternative. So Beaujolais, cool climate styles, sitting at a lower alcohol level, fresher in style, not these super bold, sometimes even off-dry reds. I mean, there's two different ways you can look at this. One is when the worldwide production of wine is going down. This is definitely a fact that is contributing in a positive way to the fact that there is too much wine in the wine cellars of almost every country in the world. We talked about that with Australia, with Germany as well, with Italy. They all have too much wine in the wine cellars. So if the production is going down, you're able to sell older vintages and you try to keep up with the demand, or let's say you can adjust your production to the demand. So if there's lower demand, it is a logical and also a smart move to adapt to that, producing less wine, but maybe of higher quality. And there were two countries in the Southern Hemisphere that reacted, maybe not directly, but at least indirectly to this trend. One thing happened in New Zealand where Auckland said, we will restrict alcohol sales beginning from December 9th. So you will only be able to buy alcohol until 9 p.m. So if you are offering as a bottle shop, as a licensed supermarket, alcoholic products, you can only sell them until 9 p.m. Bars and restaurants will be able to sell drinks until 4 a.m. in the city center and 3 a.m. outside of the center. Also, only if you have a license to sell alcohol. And establishments such as sports clubs will be able to sell alcohol until 1 a.m. The councillor Josephine Bartley said, we know that excessive alcohol can have a damaging effect on people's lives, and so we need to make changes that make a difference to this very real issue. So they are reacting on the problems they have with alcohol in the population of New Zealand, restricting the sales of alcohol. And another country that reacted on the macroeconomic factors in the wine industry was Australia. And Australian wine marketing is quite known internationally to be able to respond to ongoing trends and developments in the industry quite fast and also quite well. There were some positive trends seen in Australia, for example, that China got rid of the tariffs on Australian wines and they were able to grow their exports to China again, not to the level they were sitting at a couple of years ago, but at least they saw a huge increase in wine sales to China. Nevertheless, people are consuming less, production decreased, and they see a shift in consumption patterns, especially with the younger generations. And of course, they also struggle with the global economic pressures. So what they said is, yes, we have a decline in production due to climate issues and stuff. Yes, we see that there is a shift in consumption patterns, and we want to react by that with producing less wine, which brings us to a more balanced level of demand versus offer. And in addition, we can get rid of the wine that is still sitting in our cellar. So a decline in the production is not the worst thing that could happen to Australia. Right now, they are able to sell the wine that is stocked in the cellars, and they can also react on the change in the consumption patterns when it comes to the wine style, because more people are interested in whites. White wine is on the rise, red wine is declining. So what they say is, we focus more on white wine production and offering lighter wines, more aromatic wines, and Sauvignon Blanc, for example, can only be one possibility to do so. So what Australia is doing right over here, in my opinion, is they react on what is currently happening, not only in their country, but also globally, in a positive way, saying, yes, we realize that there is a shift, we will react on that shift, and we will deal with the lower production to get rid of the stuff we have in the wine cellar. And if this continues to work, they will definitely have a more balanced level of wine available versus wine that people are looking for in the future. And a focus on high quality, or at least a higher quality of wine, is definitely a good way to go. And of course, it's tough to talk about topics like this when we are right in front of the Christmas sales, because Christmas is one of the strongest times of the year when it comes to sales in the wine industry, because everybody's looking for gifts, for something to drink with their peers, or when it comes to New Year's Eve, just celebrating the new year. So many brands are adapting to that, offering special discounts, special offers for Christmas, packages, whatever. And some companies also discovered that they might focus more on alcohol-free products. Tesco, the grocer, set up kind of a focus group with some no-low experts. Their Christmas predictions say this will be huge. We saw a rise in 2024 in the whole category, and we are focusing more, especially on beer and wine, for Christmas and ongoing, because we think this will be a very successful time for the category. And the biggest winner so far this year, and also ongoing when it comes to Christmas, is no and low beer, because shoppers are now way more confident to grab a bottle of alcohol-free beer or a can, because they know that there was a huge development when it comes to quality, and that the currently available products are way closer to the original ones with alcohol in taste, in mouthfeel, and also in the aromas. The no and low spirits category already saw a rise of 20% in 2023 and is predicted to grow even more in 2024. So they exceeded their range by 30% this year. The no and low wine category is also quite strong. Not as strong as beer, but still strong, with a 10% rise in 2024. And the biggest driver, or maybe one of the biggest one, is Kylie Minogue's sparkling rosé, which rose by 70% only this year. And David Albon, who's the buyer of the no and low drinks for Tesco, said that it was super incredible to see that in terms of no and low alcohol drinks, we saw a huge demand during the Euro 2024, which we didn't expect, because it's a football tournament that is usually related to drinking alcohol. Traditionally, this time is a very tough time for the alcohol-free category, but this has changed as well. And one of the main drivers for him is that there is a higher trust in the quality of the alcohol-free products. So Tesco is going big on alcohol-free products, and talking about other brands that are realizing this shift. Majestic, one of the wine wholesalers in the UK, partners up with Club Soda, which is, They are an institution when it comes to alcohol-free products in the UK, and they partner up with 9 products of Club Soda, selling them in 212 stores nationwide. And what I'm really excited about is one of my favorite brands is part of this deal, Moderato. I was able to watch their journey internationally in Canada, in the UK, and also in Germany. I contributed to some connections for them, especially in Germany. But when it comes to the UK, right now they are also available in 212 markets of Majestic. And this is huge, especially for a brand that is looking for growth. So more and more products in the alcohol-free space are also right now available at one of the biggest wine sellers in the UK. And what also usually happens is that some products run out of stock towards Christmas because there is a huge demand. And one brand that has to deal a lot with that is Guinness. There was this reel with CNN's Anna Stewart that asked the question, why is there a Guinness shortage in British pubs? She was talking to a bartender that was explaining the problem. People are super interested in Guinness right now, and due to the fact that they went quite big on marketing, people are so interested in Guinness that they can't control the production. And she said, usually I thought that Guinness is the drink of old men. So what is driving the demand? And then they said there were so many celebrities and influencers that were going big on Guinness. We're currently seeing Ed Sheeran, Kim Kardashian, and there's also this game I was talking about recently, Splitting the G, where you take one sip of your Guinness and you try to set up the border between the foam and the actual beer right in the middle of the G of Guinness. And if you don't manage to do so, you have to order another one. This game is quite big and people are playing it on social media. So social media is responsible for the huge demand of Guinness. And I'm talking about the real Guinness. Guinness doubled down on the production of the alcohol-free version, which is still available also in many pubs by tap. But Guinness will definitely run out of stock right before Christmas. I mean, this is good for the brand, and it causes more demand for the brand. I mean, I became a fan of Guinness because I like the taste. It's quite creamy. I have never been a beer guy, but I found my way into the beer category through the alcohol-free products. And Guinness still is one of my favorite beers. It's toasty with very recognizable aromas. I would even say that Guinness is one of the few brands that managed, with the alcoholic version and the alcohol-free version, to build up this picture you have in your mind when it comes to aromas, taste, the feeling on the palate, that is so unique that you can definitely spot it in a blind tasting. And I experienced that in the United States in August, where I met this brewer in my hotel, and I said, let's do a blind tasting. And I gave him a glass, he sniffed it, and he said, smells like Guinness. And I was like, you haven't tasted it? And he was like, yeah, no, but this is so unique, and I can definitely tell you that this is Guinness I'm currently having in my glass. And he was right. It was the alcohol-free version, but he was right. So the smell and the taste of products like this play a very big role when it comes to the recognition of your favorite product and also what people love about the taste. And this is why I was super excited to see the study that came up this week. The study is called Molecular Insights into the Aroma Difference Between Beer and Wine, a meta-analysis-based sensory study using concentration leveling tests. Well, that sounds nerdy, doesn't it? They figured out what aromas and flavors beer and wine has to have to be recognized as a beer or a wine in a blind tasting. And why is this so interesting? If you want to produce an alcohol-free version, a de-alcoholized version of your favorite beer or wine, it's not only about the mouthfeel, aromas play a very, very big role in that. And by discovering in total 40 aromas and ingredients that are necessary to do so with beer and wine, they said this could be the foundation for high quality alcohol-free products and also a good replacement for all the people who want to compare the alcohol-free version to the one with alcohol. I put the link for the studies in the show notes, and I already sent it to some friends and colleagues who are experimenting with the dealcoholization of products, and some of them already answered, yeah, I saw that as well. This is interesting. And in my opinion, especially when we talk about alcohol-free dealcoholized wine, we have to get rid of the romantic idea that you take a very good product, you pull out the alcohol, you dealcoholize the product, and then the final product is already good enough. No, if you want something that people like to enjoy, you need to add maybe natural aromas, you need to add some tannins, some acidity and stuff like that to create the perfect product. And of course, this is science. This has nothing to do with a pure product produced by nature, but this has to be one path to access the production and the whole category of alcohol-free products. So due to the fact that we already are in the nerdy category, I have some more studies for you and some more scientific news. And one I was really excited about as well was a robotics project in the UK that was funded by the government with over £475,000, so over 500,000 euro. And we are talking about a robot that is able to harvest manually. And due to the fact that the UK currently is having over 1,000 vineyards and only, quote unquote, 220 something wineries, and the fact that Brexit brought them a staff shortage for vineyard workers and for people working in the wine cellar, this might be one solution. So if you are able to rent or even to buy a robot that is harvesting manually, but in that case also, of course, automatically, you will definitely have one solution for your staff shortage in the future. And I mean, we talked about another robot from, I guess from China, from Japan, I can't remember, at least it was from Asia, that was able to pick fruits manually. And still, a question pops up in my head when it comes to wine regulations, when we talk about manual harvest, which is usually done by humans. Is this still manual harvest? Or does this count as machine harvest? And I guess we don't have an answer right now because we have to define it. When we talk about manual harvest, we usually mean that we harvest whole bunches where the berries don't get injured and you don't lose the juice of the berries and they don't start fermenting. Because usually when this happens, also color is extracted, tannins are extracted, and especially when it comes to high quality sparkling wine, you don't want to have that in the final product. And if you have a robot that is able to harvest whole bunches, in my opinion, this would be manual harvest. And this robot in the UK is not only able to harvest manually, he's also able to do some vineyard works, for example, green harvesting. I would say, just a feeling, 40% of all the tech news, of all the prototypes we were talking about when it comes to robots, vineyard work, are coming from the UK. So the UK is quite interested in the progress of technologies such as robots or artificial intelligence in the wine space, that I'm pretty excited every time I read stuff like that. And these are also projects that can definitely offer solutions for a struggling wine industry, at least in the vineyard. And talking about AI, one of the biggest US grocers, Albertsons, will serve up AI-driven personalization for alcohol and food. So what they do is they integrate an AI tool that is called Preferably in their shops in California, which provides content, guided recommendations, and a showcase for wines with similar taste characteristics. So for example, if you say, I don't know, I like Sauvignon Blanc, what else do you have in the portfolio? The tool will support you finding the wine you want to try that would probably fit your expectations. And in addition, shoppers can also get food pairing recommendations, which is also very exciting, especially looking towards Christmas, holidays, dinners with friends and family. And what made me laugh is I read this article, and one day later, there was another article saying that most diners don't want technology in restaurants. Almost 2/3 of the study made by the US culinary school Escoffier said that they want a tech-free experience when dining out at a restaurant. So only 1/3 says, well, robots might be a thing, but 2/3 said we want to have this in-person communication, conversation, and just want to have a real human experience while dining out. And I guess one of the companies that will play a key role, not only in this industry, but talking about the use of robots with general tasks supporting humans, is Tesla with their Optimus robot, because this is one of the robots that is already able to solve complex tasks. Not every task, but at least most of them. And I mean, talking about AI, usually people think we're talking about robots, and yes, they are a part of it, but it's even simpler. Think about QR codes for menus. You have to scan it, and then you get your menu digitally, like we all experienced during COVID. Then you can order digitally if you want to, and you can also pay digitally. So if you're open to that and you don't need a waiter or a waitress to talk to, this might be a solution also for the staff shortage in gastronomy. And of course, still, especially in the Western world, in Central Europe, in the United States, people are not used to a bigger amount of technology in everyday situations, let's put it like this. But Asia is, and Asia is usually offering many showcases like that. And people are more open-minded to adapt to situations like that. And maybe we should open our own minds a bit more towards technology in the future, but because in my opinion, it will definitely solve some problems. Not all problems, but at least some problems we are currently having in the industry. And coming from the not so tech-interested Americans, we go to the UK, where a study found out that almost a fifth of Brits is opposed to tipping. So this study asked 2,000 consumers how they deal with the optional tipping they usually have on their bills in gastronomies and bars and restaurants. And 19% said that they were against tipping and servings charges when they're going out to eat, because usually food is already expensive enough and they just don't want to tip. So my question is, if you go out for dinner and you have a really good experience, you have great food, you have great people around you, and there is really good service, why should you not tip this person? Because the less we are tipping, the fewer people are interested in either staying in gastronomy or coming back to gastronomy. And there is a staff shortage. And the bigger the problem with the staff shortage gets, the more restaurants, pubs, and bars have to close, higher costs. They can't transfer the costs through the prices for the products to the consumers because they don't want to pay more. And then if you stop tipping, even though your experience was good, people will run away from gastronomy. I'm in a WhatsApp group of business owners quite close to here. It's a quite big group, and they usually have an exchange on what is currently happening in local gastronomy and stuff. And we just talked about 5 different restaurants that were closed in 2025 because they cannot afford running the business anymore. And people say, oh, why is it closing? It's so cool and the prices weren't high enough. But they still don't want to pay more for their food, for the experience, and they don't want to tip. This is definitely an issue. And in my opinion, if we want to have personalized experiences and we want to eat out in a good way and we want to enjoy our food with some friends, with some peers, and the service is good, please tip. And this is a complex system, and the study with the Brits is talking about some issues they're currently having. Of course, price sensitivity is one thing, and the other thing is that the actual experience is not always the best, so people just don't want to tip. And this can also happen, of course. Usually, my average is 15%, and if the service was bad, I go down, and if the service was good, I even go up. And I also happened to be so drunk, it was a couple of years ago, in London, in the Noble Rod, that I added 20% of tip because I had an amazing experience. But what I didn't realize is that they already had added the service charge on the bill. So in the end, I ended up with 35% tips or something like this. I can remember how happy the waitress was when I said, yeah, please do 300 something. And she was like, oh, wow, thank you. Well, this can also happen. So read twice would be my opinion, and drink less. Last but not least, I would like to talk about 2 exciting news from brands. The first was Starbucks. Starbucks opens a new store, a new restaurant in South Korea, but they are offering a few on North Korea. So the restaurant is sitting quite at the border of North Korea. You have to pass a military check. You have to show your passport. And then you sit on the terrace of Starbucks in South Korea watching the territory of North Korea. I don't know if this is super exciting for all of us, but it's a smart move, especially for a company that is located in the United States. And we all know that there are some issues with North and South Korea, but at least it's a bold move and tourists love it. There's this video going on. It's 56 seconds. It's integrated in the article. You can watch that later on. The link is in the show notes. But it's so much fun. There are almost over 20 people on this terrace looking at North Korea. And there's nothing to see. There's no military stuff going on. There are no people. It's just a river, some fields, and some houses. Wow. And of course, you can enjoy your favorite pumpkin spice latte, whatever, or it's a hoisin-based Starbucks coffee, maybe in Asia. Well, but I found it funny enough to put it on the podcast. So, well, here we go. And last but not least, talking about funny reactions on current trends that were going on, Lindt, the famous chocolate brand from Switzerland, they launched Dubai chocolate in Switzerland. I mean, Lindt is one of the chocolate brands in Switzerland, and they said, hey, there is this trend of Dubai chocolate. We will make our own. We will offer it with pistachio cream and this kadayif, this special food ingredient from the Arabic countries. And it was a huge success. 500 bars priced in with 15 francs, so 15, 18 euros, something like this. They sold out in hours. That was super crazy. And when you look at the comments section, people say, bring this to the US. We want to have that in the United States. Please export this and that. We are so excited about Dubai chocolate. I haven't tasted Dubai chocolate. I talked to some people who already did, and they were quite impressed. But sitting at a price point of almost 20 euro a bar? What is that? Holy chocolate? I don't know. Try it if you want to. It's not the trend I would like to jump on, but it might definitely be interesting for some people listening or watching. This is it, guys. Thank you for listening. If you like what you hear, recommend this podcast to a friend or colleague. I see you on Wednesday with the next episode. Ciao, ciao.